President, Stephanie Hubbard. This is
Joe Griffin, Vice President.
Vice President.
Dawn
And
Whalen.
Secretary. The first thing we need to do is elect new officers. Anybody want to nominate a president? Nobody wants to nominate a president? Somebody's got to do it.
Nobody's jumping for that position.
I mean, I will. I don't, but I need a nomination.
Okay.
I'm not going to nominate myself.
All right. I will nominate Stephanie Hubbard for president.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
And then there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. And I'd nominate Joe for vice president.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2 out of 3.
I think so. It'll happen.
We got any nay votes?
Four.
You as vice president?
No.
All right. So you're yay.
Yep.
All right.
So
All right. I'm going to nominate Dawn as secretary.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, that's done. And we'll read some minutes from our last meeting.
Redevelopment Commission meeting minutes, December 19th, 2012. Stephanie Hubbard called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Roll call, Stephanie Hubbard, Joe Griffin, Dawn Whalen, Kathy Chappell, Ron Moat. Reading of the minutes, Dawn read the minutes from the 11/29/12 meeting into record. Stephanie stated minutes should be amended in regards to the 125.67 that was paid to Lewis and Cape, stating it was for the RDC portion of the CDC as opposed to the Main Street Loan Program. Joe made a motion to approve minutes as amended. Ron made second. Motion carried. Old business budget. Stephanie presented the budget. Joe Griffin made a motion that the $800 line item for maintenance of Emerson Avenue median and maintenance of roundabout be removed. Stephanie asked if anyone had any comments about that. Dawn Whalen stated she felt it would be good to do and then approach businesses to step up and take it over after the $800 initial contribution was made. Kathy Chappell made a motion to approve budget as written. Ron made a second. Motion carried. New business, Eric Brown with J.E. Brown's Electric discussed what they are currently doing to maintain the lights along Emerson Avenue. Currently, they wait until 5 or 6 lamps are out, and they will go through and replace lamps and ballast. Currently, they replace about 1 ballast every 3 months. Ron asked if the warranty is still in place on any of these items, and Eric stated the warranties have expired on these items. Eric introduced Ray Phillips, who is an LED lighting rep, who has some items that might work. He described his company and the benefits of the LED lighting. Ray mentioned the IPL rebate. Stephanie asked for budget cost of currently maintaining the lighting. Stephanie asked for the cost involved in retrofitting the current light fixtures as well as an estimate of our savings. Ray stated he is willing to sell the fixtures to the RDC at his cost. Reason for this is that way he would be able to direct people to Beech Grove to see the product as it is working, so it would be beneficial to him as well. He doesn't recommend doing all the lights at once. He recommends phasing them in a few at a time. Joe asked who is currently paying for maintenance of Emerson Avenue lights, and Mayor Buckley said the city was. Stephanie advised the RDC was getting the bill, and the RDC didn't really want the bill. Stephanie asked if there were any additional costs involved with the current maintenance of the lights. Joe Griffin asked how many fixtures we were talking about, and Eric Brown stated that there are 40 on Emerson, 20 small and 20 large. Bills to be paid. $525 to Regions for administration of bonds, $110,000 to Calumet for paving of alleys, $3,250 to Crossroads for plat vacation of rough pile. Bill for Jackson Lewis, need to discuss with Craig Wiley before agreeing to pay. Dawn made motion to pay Regions, Calumet, and Crossroads and table the Jackson Lewis bill until further information was received. Kathy made second, motion carried. Member comments. Joe talked about the definition of private and public info. He hopes that the St. Francis deal goes through. He also stated that anyone driving down Main Street near the library needed to be careful as there is a fire hydrant in the middle of the street. Joe asked about community hospital. Mayor Buckley stated that offers were made to the owners. Owners have made the counter offer, so it is in process. Joe addressed comment from last meeting regarding closed door meetings and then read a statement from 12/2011 from then Mayor-elect Buckley. He thinks that we need to have a open door policy, transparency policy, and try to get the public involved. Stephanie stated that she and Dawn met with the mayor and Joe Wolfla. She stated that he made the same statements to them that he made in the paper. St. Francis seems to have a different take on the situation. Stephanie stated it was never said or inferred that we would like to have any private meetings. She did indicate there are times that a private institution may want to meet with members of the RDC, and those meetings may be closed door because it is a private institution and it is their private business, and it is at the business's discretion. She stated decision-making is open door, however, the information gathering may be private depending on the situation. Dawn Wayland thanked those in attendance, wished everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy 2013. Kathy Chappell made motion to adjourn the meeting. Ron seconded and all approved. Meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
Any motion to approve minutes is read?
I'll make that motion.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Let's see. New business. DLGF report. That would be the Department of Local Government Finance, and they have a new report this year, which I think is pretty good. It's getting better. Would like to seen one of these for the last few years. It's a statement of who our officers are, who was appointed, who was removed. All this is in our meeting minutes. In it, they have kind of a list of amounts of expenditures, and they just kind of have you lump them together and what you spent your money on over the course of a year. It's obviously going to be public record, so we'll just have Dan post this on the website. I'm not going to go all the way through it. We basically have 10 items, 2 of them being our bond payments. The rest of them are very small, except for the money that we spent on the rock pile, about $16,000. So, and that includes stuff that was already in the works as far as Crossroads that we paid for this year. So, didn't spend an arm and a leg, some paving, I guess. And these guys have had a chance to look that over. Is that correct? Good. Everything look all right. And I'd like a motion to approve this so we can submit it to the Department of Local Government Finance for the fiscal year of 2012.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second.
I'll second.
All right, and the third, we got our report in, and we'll get that to Dan, and he can enter that. They've got a online reporting system now to send all that stuff to the state. So, get that done. We got a letter here from our mayor, Mr. Buckley, about 2013 paving. He sent this on the 9th of January. Dear Commission, on Monday, January 7th, 2013, I met with representatives of United Consulting for the purpose of establishing a paving list for the city of Beech Grove in 2013. And we have established a list of streets that are in desperate need of paving. The following streets are located in allocated TIF district under control of the Redevelopment Commission, which Joe and I were discussing earlier. They're not actually located in the TIF district, but they do adjoin a TIF district. There are no streets in an allocation area. But they do abut or adjoin, however you want to look at it, areas that are TIF allocation areas. And they would be shaft from Garstang to Bellefontaine is number 1. 15th Avenue from Main Street to Albany Street, number 2. Number 3, 18th Avenue from Main Street to Albany. And the 4th is Buffalo Street from 17th Avenue to 18th Avenue. And he concludes with, we would like to receive permission from the Redevelopment Commission to proceed with the engineering estimation process and paving of these streets. Upon receiving estimations, I will forward the information you for consideration. Respectfully submitted, Dennis Buckley. And then he sent the estimates for those streets. And they total $115,656.13. I discussed with these guys, and we can discuss it out here. I think that it's premature to dedicate the amount of money in our budget towards this in January, because we just created the budget, and the money that we have for TIF allocation areas for special projects, which would include paving, potentially, if that's what we all decided, is $285,000. So we have to determine what projects are in our best interest for the entire year, and I think some more discussion of that needs to take place before we vote on spending our money on paving. And
Right.
you guys feel free to comment, or anybody out there wants to make a comment.
Have you driven these streets?
I have driven 2 of them now and taken a look, but we do need, and that's the other thing, is we need to go look at them and see what kind of issues they're having, what kind of money if the city really can't do anything, and I don't know, when would the earliest be to start? May. So I think we have a bit of time. I mean, there's obviously some engineering and things that need to be done before then, but they wouldn't start till May. So I'm thinking putting this off until at least next month wouldn't be a huge,
Well, I drove them today.
yeah.
15th Street in Buffalo, I question.
You question?
15th Street in Buffalo, I question. 18th Street is a washboard. And Chef is a washboard.
I'm not understanding I can't hear you very well.
15th Street and Buffalo Street, I question.
Okay.
18th Street is a washboard.
I don't know what you're using the term washboard means, a lot of things.
15th
Okay.
Street down. And Chef does too. It's horrible.
Okay.
But 15th Street, I didn't see even a chuckle on it.
I don't know how many times I've ever been on Shaft, but I know where it is.
It's right before you get to the rock pile.
Yeah. I think that's the only time I was there was when I
It's bad. It's been
went by the
for a
rock
while.
pile. Well,
And 18th Street's been bad.
and I think my answer to that is how much use does Shaft get now?
Well, there's that Catalyst, I believe is the name of the company.
And I know there will come a time when we use it if we redevelop the rock pile. Hopefully we'll know in a little bit of time here, about 6 weeks, I guess.
Well, this doesn't necessarily butt to the rock pile.
Yeah, but people will be using that area more,
Right.
and
There's an engineering company there, and then there's that paint company that
Yeah.
doesn't face Emerson, but it sits on Emerson.
okay.
There's a bit of traffic in and out of there.
What was the price on the shaft estimate?
Ooh, Shaft. It was 16,783.
That's a bargain.
So we're saying, John, you're saying Shaft needs definitely a look at
It does definitely.
an 18th. I'll try to go by each one of these, and I'd like these guys too, and to give their opinion. And obviously Ron and Kathy who aren't here. So we all have a working knowledge of what's going on, and we appreciate your input.
If you're not living in a TIF district or adjacent to a TIF district, what about the city streets that need paved desperately?
We were actually having that conversation, and my interpretation is one way, and Mr. Griffin's is another way. They changed language in IC 36 for redevelopment areas. And it used to say, I don't remember, you were at some of those meetings as I recall, we used to talk a lot about blighted areas. And you could only spend money, there's certain ways you can spend money. Like bond money, you have to spend in an allocation area. Any money you receive from an allocation area, basically you have to spend it on a project in your comprehensive plan if you pull out a bond for it. If you receive money from an allocation area, like we do, we just got paid the end of the year, from the revenue from our different allocation areas, which is what funds us. It makes our bond payments. But any additional information, which is any additional funds, which is what we budget, what our budget comes from, any additional funds, we can spend on any area in need of redevelopment, which they changed from a blighted area, and I'm not finding anywhere where it says it has to be used on an allocation area, or it's basically any area in need of redevelopment. And they changed that recently, and we're trying to get a better interpretation of that law so we don't make a mistake, and that's one of the reasons we can do the paving and different things. So I'm not certain it has to be in a TIF allocation area anymore, or even adjoining to an allocation area, which is what we always talked about. The new interpretation and the new laws is as long as we deem it an area in need of redevelopment, or an economic redevelopment area, or there's one other thing, and it's not in this copy. This is an old copy, by the way.
If you want to see a street that's bad, you drive down 8th Street. I mean, they did their little filling in the
Plug the holes.
last week, but
Yeah, stopgap
it's
measures.
rural.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of places, there's so many things that didn't get done for so long. Now we're in emergency response situation, basically, to a lot of area. I know the mayor deals with it all day long, but I think we don't have a problem. I know I don't have a problem. I can't speak for these guys. I know I try to all the time. I don't have a problem putting some money towards paving, but we need to make sure it's really gonna, help redevelopment, And we also need to look at the construction that's going on. They talked about redoing St. Francis, as somebody brought up, we needed to repave, Buffalo and this street and that street, and I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to repave them now if you're gonna do major construction in that
I
area.
mean, a couple of these that don't need done compared to other streets
Yeah.
that desperately.
I know I was happy to see parts of Alton done because it was, and I was happy to see some of these alleys that, like over here behind Fourth, it's like, it was like a giant hole. You could fit 10 kids inside of it, and there's still several areas around the city that way. And I think if we can help, we just have to figure out what are our goals, and that's why we need to hear from you guys, and, what are your goals, because it's your city, and if, the people that show up get to make the decisions. So, I think we should table this until next meeting. I'd like to see some discussion among members on the email, and if you guys want to email any information, feel free, rdc@beechgrove.com.
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Okay, go ahead.
Concerning your spending.
Uh-huh.
Got to wander around on the gateway and start pulling up some of the TIF area tax assessments. Are you aware that between Lowe's and Walmart, they've lost almost $4 million in their assessed value? That's going to affect you tremendously.
Yeah.
And once the circuit breaker,
It's been coming.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to be on allotment. So, you got to be careful you don't, you always have enough there to make your bond payment. That's a suggestion.
No, and that's why I'm happy we didn't have a budget to work from, as you know, from last for 2012. I think that hindered what we could do. But luckily, with the minds that were in the room, not a lot of money got thrown out the door. We obviously didn't spend as much as we took in, so there's, little bit of a rainy day fund going on. We didn't budget everything that we anticipate receiving, so there's a little cushion, and I don't think, it wouldn't be my opinion that we spend everything that we budgeted for.
Right.
So just to keep adding to the pile, I'm a saver. I always have been, and that's I sent these guys an email with a really interesting blog about Indianapolis and all the TIF stuff they're going through, and one of the things the guy was talking about was what an RDC is supposed to do, and obviously redevelop areas, and they can take out bonds and so on and so forth, but the other thing is to make sure that they're staying within their budget and to make sure they're putting money aside in case that happens and you lose your assessed value, you can still pay your bonds. So you either need to be paying down your bonds or you need to be putting money back in case you can't make a payment. And that's where, in the future, I really hope to talk about, if we don't pay down bonds, that we move more money into, I don't think we have to have so much money in the debt service to pay 1 year's worth of bonds. I don't see why we couldn't get to 2 years. There's nothing saying we can't put more than that in there. They're just saying that's the minimum amount that could be in there.
Or some plan that you were paying.
Right. So, I absolutely agree with you.
And the Emerald, you gotta remember too, whether you're in office down the road, I'm talking 5 or 10 years, as your payments amortize, your payments actually go up more than you pay now. So you're gonna, somewhere in there, you're gonna have to keep you a buffer, because for future members, or even you if you're still there, to make sure you can make your bond payments, because it goes up quite a bit.
Yeah, and I want to see the difference. I noticed last year we had a split and we knew what we were paying in principal and interest, and I haven't seen that statement this year. So I'd be interested to see that, to kind of compare to last year, to see how that.
More as you get closer to the end of your bonds.
Yeah, we definitely got to look at that, which is why I want to appoint a treasurer. We gotta would like to get around to that. You had a question.
Mayor, these 4 streets that you asked us about, would they be paved even if the money didn't come from us? Or is that something that the money has to come from the
No,
RDC to be paved?
No, there's a whole list of roads up there.
Right.
Are either in it or touch a TIF district. Shaft is probably one of the worst roads in the city. I was talking to the guy that owns Catalyst today, and yesterday, he was asking when we're gonna pave it, if we can't even pull trucks in.
Looks like you've got about 10 other streets in addition to these that the city has looked at paving.
Yeah, the engineer has looked at every one of these streets. And Shaft would probably be paved. 13th Street. Detroit is terrible. There's so many terrible roads, where do you start?
Yeah.
23rd is probably one of the worst roads in the city. 25th is Man right there in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Bellefontaine, all of Bellefontaine is awful.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
8th Street's on there, it's terrible.
Okay.
The alley south, north of the park on between 15th and 16th is terrible.
So out of 14 streets, we got 4 in TIF allocation area, so we'll take a look at them. But I'd like to give you an answer now, but it's probably not going to be till next meeting.
Well, the board's gonna hear it, Tuesday, so they can proceed with all their agreements and stuff. And what happens is, they get a bid for all of it, and then the city just cuts what it can't do.
Right.
But, it's just a lack of not doing any paving for a long time.
That would be true.
But
No.
here's some of my concerns, though. As we discussed, the NPR group is, let's look for the positive. NPR group's going to get the money, the funding for the rock pile. They'll be using shaft to construction.
That's, Bill, that's why I just put in their shaft from Bellefontaine to Church.
So we're also sitting here, it's not that I'm not sympathetic against all these, trust me. I've been around and I understand. You know, Stephanie's been asking for a map to which she never could get, so I gave them a map, and there's absolutely no streets in the map. And after sitting through the city county council TIF meetings that they had, and they had some of the biggest groups in there involved that you could get, and they were quite interesting and very informative. What they said about infrastructure is as long as it directly benefits the allocation area. And they did make a big difference between redevelopment and economic development. And we're talking to people that actually are in that business. And some of the biggest in the country, and definitely the biggest around here. You know, stuff that they're asking for, Stephanie's asking for, and everybody else, I already have. I've sat through very intensive meetings on those. It's not that I'm not sympathetic, because we do need some of this stuff. There's no doubt about it as a city. However, like what was discussed earlier, our taxes are dropping like a rock. And then you know, what's the circuit breaker for this time? Are we back up in the 30s on the circuit breaker?
Don't know.
And, so, I mean, the circuit breaker's going to bite us, and because they were extremely big on the circuit breaker also. I believe one of the groups putting it on that gave a great presentation was one of the groups that the NPR group's going for. I gave them a DVD with some information on there and some different stuff. I mean, if anybody wants one, let me know. I got some for the other members, because some of the questions are, you know, what does RDC do? What can they do? What can't they do? And that's always been a thing. There's some great presentations on those.
And when was that done? Do you know?
What's that?
The presentation from Marion County, or is that where you were?
From May through November. If you were reading the paper, it was one of the biggest, hottest things
Okay,
going.
that's what I thought.
So
I
it
saw
was-
portions of it, but I
So it was,
was
was very
thinking they did
crowded.
another one before that, and I'm gonna make sure it was this one. But some of the things they do are different than what we do, because some things pertain to counties and some things don't pertain to
no,
us.
we're under the
But,
same wall they are.
some of
What'd
it,
you want?
yes, some of it, no. And I was reading a lot about that today. But I do want to make it clear, I didn't ask for the maps because I thought there were streets in them. That's never been a question in my mind. But I did want to see the areas, because they added areas later on when I kind of stepped away from the table. They were in the middle of adding these other areas where we added this stuff. This is what I wanted to see, where they added these parks. But no, there aren't any streets in allocation areas. They're not allowed to be. But that doesn't affect the fact that we can spend money on them. We can't put them in comprehensive plans or spend bond money on them. Is that all we got about paving? Were you done, Joe? I'm sorry.
I mean, we have to be very careful on what we do, because there is a greater benefit on it. I think we need some legal advice, definite legal advice. We need Jeff Peters in here, because he can give us a lot of advice. Now, they're going to say, hey, you're going to spend money. Well, we're going to have to spend money in order to save money and get money. He can put a conclusion to a lot of these questions that we have going, and then we can start setting ourselves straight down the path. If we're going to have an argument, let's get inside it here, and not be arguing and pushing on around on, you know, what people have to say and don't have to say. You know, I've got a lot of proof, and I keep bringing it and showing it, and, you know, Stephanie's no lawyer. Stephanie doesn't do it for business. She doesn't do it for a living, and it's in direct contrary, some of the stuff, to what they were saying at those meetings that the city county council put on. And they had all the bigwigs, and guess what? It's all the people that overlook us. So, and like I said, they had the biggest in the country and the biggest around, so they had all the names there. And they all gave pros and cons on it.
All right,
Got a question.
sure.
Who decides what roads are gonna be done by the RDC and what roads are gonna be done by the
Well,
city?
it appears that the mayor's broken them up based on TIF allocation areas. They don't have to be, like we discussed earlier, they don't have to be broken up that way anymore. It just needs to be an area in need of redevelopment. but-
Streets are the city's job.
Well, the streets are the city's job, but redeveloping or making areas more likely to be redeveloped and things like that. Like if you were gonna put a business in and you came down Shaft and realized you can't get a truck in there, are you gonna redevelop?
That's the city's problem.
It's still an area needed. If there's an area over there that part of that district is TIF, so there's obviously an area over there that needs redevelopment. Somebody's already determined that. So we're saying if you can't get a truck in there, how likely are you to redevelop?
I think it's a really great area right there. Really great.
And this is where we disagree. From what I understood of those meetings, they said it has to be of a direct benefit to the allocation area.
But redevelopments, bring in new business, get the city going again, not to fix those streets.
Well, you can,
That's the city's job.
well, in a way it is, in a way it isn't. The RDC does have the ability to do what they call infrastructure. And by infrastructure, they're saying like roads, sewers, pipelines, and things of that nature. But the caveat to all that is just like the but-for question.
Which only
It will
applies
have
to
to-
an economic
you-
development area.
But it will have to get up there and be pointed out how it's going to be a direct benefit to your allocation areas, the ones that you're taking money from, because that's our number one concern, is what's going to fuel the areas that's paying us. So we have to do whatever our thought process is, we have to say this is going to benefit the areas that's paying us. Because if you're paying us for something, you're expecting some dividends, aren't you? Because we only have, 118 properties total in there. And a lot of them, if you sit there and look at the map, don't even have buildings on them. They're just sitting there empty.
I would just hate to see what money you guys have, like you said, spent at the beginning of the year for something that's a city job.
You know, and that's discussion on, because what you're supposed to be doing, my understanding of it is your complete comprehensive redevelopment plan is what you're supposed to be addressing and working straight off your complete comprehensive redevelopment plan. Where you get in trouble is when you get off of your complete comprehensive redevelopment plan. But our complete comprehensive redevelopment plan is a bit outdated, and you should be looking at it every 2 or 3 years to keep it up because everything's so fluid. You know, and the first thing we need to do, really, if you're asking me, is redo our complete comprehensive redevelopment plan. Get the public back involved, get the organizations, get everything going. And that is where you're supposed to focus all your money on. And I think if you look real close, Stephanie keeps saying that it's suggested that you follow the complete comprehensive redevelopment plan. Well, that's true to an extent, except for Beech Grove passed a law stating that the complete comprehensive redevelopment plan is a law. So therefore, we have to follow it. That was done back, I think, in 2007. I can look it up, see if I got that.
We can
stuff.
pass a resolution to change it.
They passed a law stating it was going to be law. So,
Chef, I could see, for business.
Well,
15th Street,
that's my comment. Chev, you've got a beautiful building there with the engineers on the point. I know Catalyst has put put a lot of money into that old feed store. You know, it's kind of, we've done our part, now when are you gonna do yours? And that's why I'm kind of I'm with Dennis on that, especially that street. That street's all busted up.
See, I'm not arguing any of that. I'm just saying we
But I
got,
think, you know, you're concerned with traffic. I think you'll see most, if and when NRP group moves on the rock pile, most of the traffic, I think, will feed off on the Churchman as opposed to one of the other streets. Or Garstang.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see any traffic.
you know, we're supposed to have some sort of word from them on February, aren't we? Okay, and then also, if I understand the open door law, we're supposed to put stuff to open bids whenever we do anything, is the way I understood it.
NRP group,
Uh,
you talking about with the NRP?
No, for if we decide to do the streets and whatever we spend money on, and if you sit there and look at it, even the last group always put open bids out.
Yeah, I was looking
So
at that
you
today.
can't- You can't go with just one thing. We have to put out open bids and then go for the bidding process and all that other stuff. Good, bad, or indifferent, but I believe that's the way the law, that's the way I understand the law, and that's the way they.
I think it's over a certain amount of money, and I'm not sure what that amount is, but I was looking at construction stuff today under our purview, and it doesn't really say that, but I think it should. But I want to go back to something you said a minute ago about the but-for thing you're always talking about, which basically applies to an economic development area and not a redevelopment area. And it is, stated in the law, the benefit the public health, safety, morals, and welfare, increase the economic well-being of the unit and the state, and to serve to protect and increase property values in the unit and the state. So if it's in an economic development area, you have to adhere to those standards of what Joe's talking about, but a redevelopment area or an allocation area or a TIF area are under a different way of thinking. So basically, if we decide it's a area in need of development, which is how the law changed, we can do what we need to do. But we'll come to that point, I think, in the next month or so, and decide about what projects are important to the city as far as redevelopment goes, and what the five of us are going to vote on to spend the money towards, and with your input. So email us and talk to us at meetings, call us on the phone, whatever you need to do. Let us know what you want to see that will help us.
I say if we're gonna do anything like that, we have a meeting, open meetings. Have a series of open meetings for it, because if you sit there and look around, look, Greenwood has a series of open meetings for any of their stuff, Westfield. Avon's going through a series of open meetings like that. We can't do it through emails or anything else like that. We need to get a
The
series of
stuff
open
I've seen on open meetings is where a redevelopment commission has already decided on a project or has a project they're considering that they put forth in front of the public. I'm just asking for ideas that would be beneficial, So, anybody's welcome to come to a meeting, and all our meetings are open. They can come and talk anytime. I'm just saying our email accounts are also open. Our phones are also open. So if anybody's got ideas, put them out there. We'll develop a plan and come up with something. But obviously the need right now is becoming apparent, and it's paving. So, we have to make decisions real soon, obviously, if they're going to go to contract. So
That's the only need, is it?
I don't think so. But like I said, the people that show up make the decisions. So if you guys got ideas, you obviously show up. bring them to the table. We'll definitely listen to them and take them into consideration. So you see an area you have a good idea for, we'll look into it. But is that it, everybody? Everybody done talking? We'll pay some bills if you are.
Well, other than disagreeing with you on a lot of stuff, but we already pointed that one out.
Well, I think I agree with you in the fact that we need to consult some people and find out what we can and can't do. Because I'm not an attorney, you're not an attorney, Don's not an attorney, and these people go to school for a long time and have a lot of knowledge, and there are people that have very specific knowledge concerning what we're trying to do. And I think it's important to get Jeff Peters in. He knows a lot about, he's set up most of these allocation areas, so I'm hoping he knows a lot about it. I know he does. I've heard him talk about stuff before, so I will agree with you on that. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. So, what would be helpful is if you could try to get a list together of, because you've seen the meetings, you know what attorneys they use. I know there's one in Zionsville. If you wanted to get a list together to contact, so we can start seeing how much they charge and what we're looking at, if you don't mind. I would love to see that before the next meeting, because I think you're absolutely right. Can we move on to bills? Anybody? You guys got anything else? Go ahead.
Question, what was it, back in October or September, October, that gentleman was here, was talking about,
IUPUI?
yeah.
Yeah,
Get involved with them.
he was looking to move, and I talked to him. We talked about setting up another meeting, and then we had all new board members and never got any momentum behind it, and it was me and Don going, we can't set up meetings without, and, people came in and, two of them had, didn't know a whole lot about the RDC, and they're still getting their bearings, and I don't think we had Joe yet, did we? Mm-hmm. It's just barely, though. So we were trying to get it all,
Makes sense.
but they wanted to have meetings and then start everything this semester. Well, all the stuff they wanted to do was a whole lot to get done for a 5-member commission, let alone it was just me and him basically talking on the phone. So I would like to revisit that. I think it'd be a really great idea. And as I've been reading the minutes, because trying to do the report and stuff, I'm like, so all kinds of stuff we got to go back to, because we got, I had my issues and then all the other stuff that's happened last year. But yeah, I'd like to revisit it. But it would be, the earliest would be whatever their next semester would be, so,
Just let them come in, maybe they can identify some
yeah.
areas you can work on.
Well, they had very specific things they wanted to do, so, regarding repurposing train cars and some other stuff, so.
Right now, we have nowhere to do that, so.
Actually, we got a couple of places to do that. We went and looked at them, but, and you'd have to get Amtrak on board, and there's a lot of work that would go into it, and there just wasn't enough time before they started this semester to set everything up the way it would have needed to be to even talk about doing it. And he was looking for a program that, started this week or last week, when school started, so I don't know. All right, let's pay some bills. Actually, really, what I like to do, the TIF payments have actually already been made out of our account. We just need to approve the fact that they were paid. And Craig Wiley's bill from Lewis and Capes is still in here. I didn't hear from him until yesterday afternoon and didn't have a chance to call him back. I still have some concerns about things that are on this bill. And I'll talk about some of them. Basically, a lot of it just says issues concerning the Redevelopment Commission, and that's just not doing it for me. And I think you guys deserve more information than that. I think it needs to be public record, what we talked about, what were the issues. Some of the things are spelled out, but for the most part, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 issues regarding RDC. I don't, and then another bill where he's trying to present himself as someone we might need services from, which is not until after he's billed us for 8 months, and then billed us for that phone call and emails. So I'm confused about that. And if you're trying to get my business, I'm obviously not going to pay for that time. So I have concerns with that bill, but we do need to approve the.
What is the total of that bill?
And this is for an entire year of anything we've ever called him about, and some of those things are legitimate. Like the very first phone call I had with him in March was about regarding sale of land through Redevelopment Commission, because there was confusion about how we listed it, what process we needed to go through before we'd be able to donate it, because it had to be, the public notices and all the things, and the law wasn't very clear, as I'm sure John remembers. It wasn't clear, so I called him, and he billed for a fifth of an hour of me, talking to him about what we needed to do, and then I think he sent an email. So some of those things, we did incur charges, but this bill, you asked what the total was, didn't you? I can answer your question. $1,456. So, that is the total.
And this is above and beyond what he's charging the city.
The city, yes. This is just for the redevelopment commission. So almost $1,500. I think, and we've only got another bill for $125. So the redevelopment commission for a fiscal year would have spent less than $1,700, and we've,
Legal fees?
yeah.
Had it been positive, been 100,000.
Yeah, and that's basically my point, is they,
What we're talking
I've
about
seen
now.
his bill.
what I'm talking about is $1,700 for what we tried to accomplish this year is pretty marginal. But we need to straighten out. I'd like some backup documentation as to what we talked about, and it's public information. So I'd like to have that. It's just like when we did the Crossroads stuff. They sent a bill saying they were completed, and we elected not to pay that bill yet because I hadn't seen, they had stuff that needed to go to the recorder and be recorded, and we didn't have any of that documentation. And I think they were just so used to not ever sending it to anybody, they didn't send it. And I'm like, Trent, I gotta have it, or the rest of your bill's not getting paid. So he did end up sending that information for the rock pile so we can have a record of it. Because there's literally no record of anything they ever did. So I just think nobody wanted it. And so they didn't send it. So they're just used to not sending it. And I'm like, Craig? No. And that's what, one of the bills is for discussing, not on a retainer, but he was supposed to send me how much he costs an hour and tell me the things he was available to do, because not every attorney does everything. And he doesn't know a lot about, and which he'll admit, doesn't know a lot about redevelopment commissions or real estate, which is a lot of what we do. So it would behoove us to use him for certain things. And most of the redevelopment stuff will probably move to a different attorney. Because they know, they have specific knowledge. This is what they do with 99% of their time, is redevelopment commissions, and their attorneys just focused on that and real estate law. So, yeah. But I'm sure we'd used him, we used him for a couple different things, regarding, the debacle with the CDC and what, and labor laws and different things like that. So, so if we take out the Lewis and Capes bill, anybody like to approve our bond payments that have already been approved on this docket?
Make a motion.
We got a motion from Joe. We got a second. All in favor? Aye. Let me see if I got a total.
This is the not pay that on the voucher, you change that about.
Well, I just marked it out.
The last month, that's,
I marked it out because I was looking at vouchers today, going. So I marked out the amount on the voucher.
then you need to put the new total in so they'll know what to pay. What-
I'm gonna write. We need a new voucher. Let's see. What is the total? Let me get out.
Really need to make some kind of notation on the vouchers when you.
Yep. I'm working on it. All right. Let's get this done real quick. I'll do that in a minute. I'm gonna talk just a second about we talked when we were going over our budget about maybe partnering with the Greenscape Commission. I was at the city council meeting, and I talked to Tim Latimer. I'd sent an email, but I guess it didn't go through. But I talked to Tim Latimer, and I'm going to go to, we didn't discuss anything more than, hey, I'd like to talk to you about plants that might grow back and possibly partnering with you to get some volunteers or to, solicit businesses to, adopt these medians and roundabouts and different things and just open the floor for discussion. And he says, sure, we got a meeting on the 22nd. Come on over. So I'm going to hopefully go to their meeting. Any of you guys are welcome to come. It's at 6 o'clock at Hornet Park on the 22nd. So I'm going to go over there and just discuss some of our options as far as, what they would like to help us do, and hopefully they can give us some plants that'll come back every year that we don't have to keep replanting. We could just mulch. There are plants like that now, but there are also gaps where people had planned to plant things every year, but I think there's some pretty stuff that could go in there, and hopefully they can help us find businesses that want to contribute to that project. And that's basically just everybody getting together and helping each other out. Yeah, and then we also have to discuss, the same kind of thing on Main Street. So, and
I have brought that up with Helping Hands, just to let you know.
awesome, thank you. So hopefully, we'll have a good discussion with them regarding that on the 22nd. I also, I went to a NARI meeting, which is the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, on my own for work. But Rick Powers was the speaker at that meeting, and he is the head of the Department of Code Enforcement for Marion County. And after the meeting, I talked to him about excluded cities and towns, and some stuff regarding that. And I've been thinking for a long time, if we have a major redevelopment, we have no plan in place as far as code enforcement, permits, that inspections. Right now, we have Mike Fitzgerald that does a great job, but he's contracted. He's for small projects. And really, the people that know how to do that stuff are at Marion County, and they do it all day, every day. They've got engineers and architects and plan reviewers and analysts. And if we redeveloped a major project like St. Francis, and hopefully we will, it would be in our best interest to have an agreement with Marion County already in place that just said, hey, you're going to take care of this for us, right? And they'd be like, yeah, it's in the file, So I'd really like to start some discussions with them regarding that. I know the mayor has his own things to discuss with them regarding, and at my suggestion regarding code enforcement, it's basically kind of like a mutual aid agreement, except we would be the only one receiving the aid, because they know how to do everything. If you had something happen here like Richmond Hill, or you had a huge storm that wiped out 100 houses, we're not equipped here to deal with that code enforcement wise. And you really need a memorandum of understanding with the larger governing body saying, we're going to come in and handle this for you. And I don't think they need to, charge us extra fees or anything like that. They would charge what they already charge. You just go to Marion County to get your permit. You'd call up Marion County to get your inspection. And we're just saying, if it comes to that, you're gonna help us out, right? And,
Doesn't that fall under the city's jurisdiction, though?
that portion of it, but I'm saying we need to discuss it together, because I want the same thing if we redevelop St. Francis tomorrow, who would permit it? Who would determine it,
How did the redevelopment commission get involved with St. Francis?
it's in a TIF allocation area. I'm just saying, I'm just saying, even if it falls in the city, if we say we don't want anything to do with it, we're not gonna spend any money on it, we're not gonna help you, he's gotta do it. So, I'm just saying there isn't anything. And if we do a major redevelopment, whether it's St. Francis or anything else, we've got no way to make sure that it's permitted correctly, that it's been reviewed, plans have been reviewed correctly, that, it's been inspected properly. We don't have those services here. And that's what I'm saying, is we need an agreement that says somebody's gonna come and do that. And it's on the redevelopment commission to do, I think, if we redevelop something. So it's just my opinion, and it doesn't cost us any money. So I don't know what the argument would be if it's, we have the ability to hire a code enforcement officer if we want, as an RDC. So, that's in IC 36. If the city can't keep up with our needs as far as redevelopment goes, we can hire our own code enforcement. And that's basically what I'm saying, is I wouldn't hire anybody, I just hand it off to Marion County. If it was so big that we couldn't, why incur more costs hiring somebody that you may employ for a year and then let go because your redevelopment's done? They've got all the ways and means to do it over there, and do it better than I could ever think about doing it. That's all they do 100% of their time. So, I'm not saying we need to lose it as a whole for our city. I'm not giving it away to anybody. I'm saying for special circumstances that exceed our everyday ability, we need an agreement in place. Doesn't cost any money. It would basically be whoever develops the property would be responsible for their permitting costs anyway. They're just gonna pay Marion County instead of us. And that's all we're saying. We're saying we're retaining our rights to permit and inspect everything we do now. But if these other situations come up, A, B, and C, if there's a storm, if there's an explosion, if there's a bomb dropped on the city, I don't know. Or if we redevelop bigger than what our capacity is here to enforce the code, we need somebody to do it. So I just had that brief conversation with him. I spoke more about it now than I did with him. It was about 4 minutes long. But he's totally on board. Would like to sit down with the redevelopment commission and the mayor and discuss these topics that I've been talking about. And they are absolutely 100% willing to help us. So that's all I've got. Joe, you want to make some comments? He basically said what he was going to say.
I thought that 100-some pages covered that, but if there was a disaster, doesn't federal and all that other stuff, Homeland Security jump in automatically and all that other stuff? So, I thought we had, 100-some pages on that passed by the council, wasn't it?
As far as permitting, though.
But it was fixed, because the council had to have it, 4 or 6 weeks before you could start bringing it forward so they could go through it? And
But keep in mind, before there would be any approval of prints or anything from the city of Detroit, that would go through the state, and then.
Yeah, it has a construction design release, then you'd have an ILP, an improvement location permit for Marion County anyway. What we do is structural, signage, that sort of stuff, and we're just saying,
Just don't see where that's an emergency problem.
it's, I mean, it's in the code. I don't know how any better way to explain it. I mean, if you develop beyond your means to enforce the code, somebody's got to be responsible for it.
What I'm understanding is if we had a major storm, a tornado come through.
That's the city's deal.
Like we
I'm
did.
talking about a major redevelopment. We had three scenarios.
No,
Three-
you just said a storm.
I said 3 scenarios. 2 are the cities and 1 is ours. The 2 that are the cities, if there's a disaster or a storm, those are the city's problems. The third one would be a major development. That's our problem.
I guess
I'm just saying, if we're doing a mutual aid agreement, well, we can all do it together and save on, time, energy, effort. You can write it all in one thing. Do what?
When Lowe's and Walmart were developed. Mm-hmm.
I would
That's on them.
I would imagine anybody with half a brain would have contracted with the Marion County to inspect
I
it.
don't think they would be over a project like that automatic.
They're not. Which is why there needs to be an agreement in place, because they could come in and say, after you've already done the project, come in and say, oh, by the way, now we're going to charge you double what we normally charge for a structural permit, because you're going to pull it and our guys are going to review it. We're going to charge you double for inspections. This agreement would say, we're going to charge you exactly whatever our fees are for that fiscal year that were set by the city county council, by Marion County Code. And we're going to charge you exactly the same amount and no more. And because they can come in, I mean, Rick Powers said it in his speech at the NARI meeting, we run this as a business model. We take no taxpayer funds. So he has every intention of making money, and if he can make money off of Beech Grove, he would. But if there's an agreement already in place saying he's got to help us at no additional charge, then he can't charge us any more money. And it saves us money in the long run. And so,
Who oversaw the White Castle rebuild?
it depends. I mean, it should have been Beech Grove. I don't know what they did. They would have gotten an ILP from Marion County. They should have gotten a structural permit from the city of Beech Grove. Their zoning went through Beech Grove, I know.
Who did the
That-
inspections?
You have to ask the mayor.
I'm just asking.
It's not my area. I
Sounds like
don't
It's
know.
already covered.
It,
If it's in Beech Grove, I mean, there's been,
Rick Powers would tell you it's not covered. You do a sign permit in Beech Grove and you do a sign permit in Marion County. The zoning for your sign goes through Beech Grove. Your structural permit should be here. I don't know if they pulled a structural permit.
signs still go through Indianapolis.
Signs go through
I know
both.
for a fact it went through Beech Grove.
Signs go through both. In every excluded city and towns, I pull them every day. They go through both. You get your Marion County one, and actually Beech Grove doesn't care if you have your Marion County one. They'll give you one anyway. In Lawrence, you have to have your Marion County one before they'll give you a Lawrence one. But you have 2 sign permits for any excluded city and town. On a building like White Castle, you'd have the signage, the structural, and the zoning would all go through Beech Grove, and the ILP would be pulled at Marion County. So, what they did, I have no idea. But you know what I would know? If there was an agreement in place. So, and that's basically what we're saying is right now in Beech Grove, and I don't mean to dig on anybody by saying this, but code enforcement is done by virtue of a basically a handshake of you're on your honor. Code enforcement is on your honor. If your neighbor doesn't call in on you and you're putting a roof on your house, you don't need a permit. And I hate to say that out loud, but that's exactly what's going on. So, code enforcement's a big issue with me. A big issue. And not just the ones that we've enforced for years, but also the ones that are going unenforced, like our rental codes. They're big issues for me. They should all be enforced. They were passed by people that we elected that knew what was best for us, or so we thought, and, you know, unless they're repealed, they should be enforced. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Back to my comments.
Yeah.
You know, I gave them a DVD with some stuff on there pertaining strictly to RDC stuff. If anybody wants one that's besides you three, if you three want one, I think I've still got plenty. I'll have some for the extra ones. Just go ahead and email the RDC, drop it in there so we all know, and I'll get you a DVD one way or another. Check those DVDs. I didn't have a chance to check them to ensure that they did right totally.
Alright.
So if
Yeah.
they don't,
Oh,
give me a
I don't
holler.
know.
Give me a holler.
Do you mind if I keep the maps you gave me? I know they're on here, but do you wanna,
No, go ahead.
okay.
And stuff, because you'll find different things on there, and I'll tell you, some of the things that you'll find will be the PowerPoint presentation for St. Francis is on there. I got that off a blog and stuff, your blog.
I know, I was looking
And
at some of
that
that
was-
stuff the other day.
But,
I can't
you
believe
know,
some of this
I would
stuff's still on there.
also request from the mayor, if you go through here, I would definitely love to see all the stuff that was passed through there and exactly where we stand on this. Because it was moving fast, it was confusing. If we could get somebody to give us all the stuff in here, because they gave piece by piece process of this in there, that would be wonderful to get a hold of and see what we have there. You know, there's other stuff in there. There's stuff on the landfill. You know, I'd be great to dump it unless we got some other stuff. Also, you know, CSX, Amtrak, I'm just gonna call them the railroad. Joe Wright did have something going with them, and they were in the form of mediation, and they were in the form of a voluntary mediation on there, and they sent a letter out to him. And then they found out that, you know, business reasons, you're in real estate, you know anything can fall through at any time. They found out that there was no buyer, so they decided to go ahead and cut back on the speed of which they were doing the voluntary remediation. However, they are doing voluntary remediation. In there, I also included like 6,000 pages from them. You're going to sit there and go, what am I going to do with these 6,000 pages? You know, it's some of the stuff you can pick up, but some of the stuff you can sit there and see they're spending all this money. I believe I also put in there what their draft sales agreement was. So they already have it in place, and they're planning on getting rid of it. You know, they're turning out to be a viable place if they have something to go. It looks like from my research, from what I've been doing, seeing there. That's included on DVD. I've got some of the stuff that was done at that presentation downtown through the City County Council. Some very prime stuff. One of them was on, they basically said what the RDC must focus on and how it should go, and the guidelines, and a lot of PowerPoints, a lot of presentations, a lot of facts, and I got some of that stuff broken down into each and every one of the big projects at that time. I also got, I believe on this one, I got the original Better Brighter Beach Grove book in there, so you can see where it all started from, and then see where,
Sweet.
see
Haven't
where
seen
it
that
come
in a
from
long
there. So, you know, there's various different things to come on down through. This is a basic of, here we are, let's stand, go forward from here, because I'm trying to help demystify the RDC, as you can see. And then we can start sitting up here and talking about, because that's one of the biggest things that people want to argue about, you know, if you want, he said, she said, kind of thing going on there. Right here will help break a lot of this stuff down. At least it'll start getting people on factual ideas coming straight through here. And you'll see at the time that when the TIF was being made and everything else, TIF was still pretty new around here. So a lot of the stuff they were saying wasn't exactly right, but stuff was moving so fast, nobody could really say yes or no. Now that it's slowed down, and Indianapolis has done one hell of a job in places, and you know, they've really done bad in some others. So they've gotten a pretty decent idea of what's going on, and if you sit there and start looking around at all the developments going on, they've gotten a lot better handle on it, and they're going to take a bigger handle each time it comes around, it sounds like. So some of that stuff is on there. I can't put it all out there because, you know, it just, it baffles people when I put too much out there. take a look at the property tax assessment. No, I didn't put that website in there. So next time I'll start putting some of that stuff in there, some websites that you can hit, check, and go through and see what we have out there. I'll start bringing little bits and pieces to start passing out. I've been passing out information to these guys for a while here at these last meetings and stuff, and this is just another little add-on to go along with it. And it's all factual stuff. Some of it might say, don't get too lost on, you might pull something up that says 2001. Sometimes that's when it started. A lot of these things, when they get going, get started. I'm kind of hesitant. I'm not against doing streets, trust me. I'm not against that. I'm just hesitant on where we actually stand right now of finding out where our footing is. Like when the mayor, when I took him downtown, he found out all of a sudden that circuit breaker, it sounds like something, and it looks like on paper you're getting that money. And Jeff Peters did admit up there that you lost that money, even though it's on paper. So I'd like to see exactly where we stand before we start doing anything. I'm not saying these streets don't need it. I'm trying to figure out exactly where we stand and how we stand. Seeing what we can do, be cautiously optimistic. And, we must have been doing the same thing, because I got on that tax site and I started looking at some of this stuff. Walmart went from 14 million down to 11 million. Lowe's went from 9 million down to 7 million. And the CSX Transportation, just one parcel, went from $10,000 to $600. All of a sudden we're falling and we don't know where we're standing. And then it's also another big one, as the mayor will tell you, what taxes really do get collected. Just because they're down there doesn't mean we're going to get them. Mm-hmm. And we have a limited supply on where we actually get our funding from. What was it, 118 parcels we actually had? And if you sit there and look at the map, you're going to find out a lot of them don't have buildings on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of them are zero value,
yeah,
too.
So, just land value. So I would like to, maybe slow the train down a little bit and say, hey, wait, let's get some of these questions answered. Let's get some of the stuff going. Let's all get on the same page. Let's don't get a he says, she says, let's get it all squared away and start focusing down that road. And I love people coming. I love being open. I don't care if we have an open meeting and we publish it and only you 3 people show up. We did our job. We did a series. Any successful redevelopment, you sit there and look at Greenwood. They had a 5-hour meeting when they put up Old Town Greenwood and stuff. A guy developed the plans, got up there, and they had an interview with him after that, and the reporter goes, well, what do you think about your plans? They're all shot up and they're carved up. His reply, you had to start someplace. And it's not my plans, it's their plans. Mm-hmm. You start looking at Westfield, you start looking at all this other stuff. We do have to redo our comprehensive redevelopment plan. We do have to get some of this stuff out of there, because that's always fluid, so you should review it at the worst every 3 years, at the very worst, and we haven't reviewed it since it's been done. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of things to see. One of the things they keep beating on, though, is get a plan and stick with it, because the ones that don't stick with it are the ones that lose out. And government is getting a lot harder looks on redevelopments. Carmel's one of the biggest things going. There's a lot of them that use it for political gain and all that other stuff instead of for the betterment of. So I mean, and we've got to be aware of that. The question we got to ask ourselves: what is best for the people that's paying us? Because what is best for the people that's paying us is going to be what's best for Beech Grove. Because they're paying us to take care of them, and that's why they're in there. They're getting benefits for being in there, but we've got to help them. And by helping them is going to lead to growth all around. Successful development has to start that way. So basically my understanding of it is we put money out and it should start multiplying on its own without us ever having to do anything again if we've done our job properly. How are we going to benefit the city of Beech Grove with development? The infrastructure, all the stuff that people don't really actually look at, that bores people to death. But that's some of it, I guess. So I'm rambling. I'll quit.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thank you for the CDs. I do want to caution everybody on something. The law has changed significantly, and the PowerPoints, I always say, I don't say this about anything, consider the source first. Where did that PowerPoint come from and who put it together? Where did that document come from? Who put it out? Because some of the PowerPoints and things are done by people like, I'm going to say it, Joe Wright, who really didn't know anything about the law and didn't care. So some of them are done by well-read attorneys where the law at the time was exactly what's going to be on there. But the law now is completely different. This is a good historical starting point and good things to know. But the bottom line is we're going to have to consult an attorney to know exactly what it is we can and cannot do. And then develop our plans, look at our comprehensive plan, like Joe is saying. He's absolutely right, a minimum of every 3 years. And determine what we need to do to revise that, to keep up with what we're trying to accomplish. I think I'm done. You done?
Done.
Done. All right.
I can talk for another 2 hours.
I know. Well, we're gonna adjourn the meeting first, and then we're gonna adjourn the meeting first. You stay here and talk.
All right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.